Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Event-Driven Growth in the Time of COVID webinar, hosted by EventX, Asia's leading virtual events management platform. My name is Rick Boost, and I will be moderating today's proceedings. In the spring of 2020, the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic presented the events industry with an incomparable, game-changing situation. And in the months that followed, brand marketers and event organizers searched high and low for effective methods to combat this difficult and unfamiliar environment while still delivering meaningful events. And it is exactly those discoveries that were made over this year of exploration and experimentation that we will focus on in today's webinar. For just over an hour, three major players in Asia's event industry will provide valuable insights on using events to drive growth in the year to come and beyond. Now, the first member of our panel is Sum Wong, co-founder and CEO of EventX, Asia's leading virtual events platform, which has organized over 5,000 events, attended by over 5 million guests in total. An expert in the field of digital events and networking, he has been featured in multiple marketing and events publications and appeared as a speaker on Global Exhibition Day. Our second panelist today is Johnny Ng, business director at Morning Studio. With over 18 years of experience in building digital products and providing marketing and media solutions, Johnny leads the marketing services strategy and execution for the South China Morning Post's advertiser clients. Specifically, Morning Studio supports brands with custom content and custom events that leverage the SCMP's strengths. He's been named as one of 2 winners in the agency partner category at the Content Moguls 50 Awards in 2019, and was also recognized as one of Asia's leading content marketing practitioners. And our third and final panelist is Ricky Wong, Managing Director of GL Events China. With more than 20 years of industry experience, he is an expert at audiovisual consulting, event planning, project management, and venue management. He has worked on several major projects and international events that include the G20 Summit in Nanjing, the Equestrian Games at Beijing Summer Olympics, and the East Asian Games in Hong Kong. To all 3 of our panelists, let me offer a big welcome to today's panel. I feel I speak for all of our attendees when I say we are excited for what ideas you can bring to this discussion. But before we start with that discussion, I would like to present all of our attendees with the first of several poll questions we will be asking during this event, as we are very interested in getting your perspective. Our first question today is, how many virtual events have you organized over the past year? So I'll just give you a very short duration, probably about 30 seconds. If you could select how many virtual events you have organized over the past year. So just seeing that. Right, time's running out if you need to answer this first polling question. Okay, I think we're wrapping it up now. Okay, closing this poll. Right, and let us see the results. So over the last year, the high-flying winner of this question is 1 to 5 virtual events. 49% of you answered that you ran 1 to 5 events in the last year. The next highest one was 0, followed by 6 to 10, and also followed by more than 10, and then followed by 6 to 10. So overwhelmingly, I think it was pretty obvious to see it was going to be the answer, but everyone has mainly been running virtual events, apart from about a quarter of us in attendance. Interesting. Right, but before we go on to what we feel about those poll questions, because I'm sure that those results are going to be talked about, I'd like to throw things over to our 3 panelists I introduced earlier, and I'd like for them to introduce themselves to get a better idea of who they are. So I'd like to first start with, how about you, Ricky? Could you go into further detail about your position and what role events, physical or virtual, have played for your company.
Sorry, I'm Ricky from GL Events China Limited, and I have been working for this company for more than 25 years, and I have been in event and exhibition business for more than 30 years. GL Events is a listed company in France, and we have three major divisions. One is we are a service provider. We provide all the service for exhibition and all kinds of different events. Up to the mega sport events such as Olympic Games and World Cup. And then also we are event organizer. We host, in the past, we host more than 200 exhibitions per year, but nowadays due to the COVID, it's all slowed down. And finally, we do manage a convention center. We manage about 53 convention center, congress center, and exhibition center all over the world. I mean, this pandemic really have changed the nature of our business. And I think it's giving us the time or a chance to think and to learn. So this is my background. And as you mentioned before, I've been involved in some major events in the past. So yeah, Rick.
Very good. I was interested in a couple of things you said there, actually, to go deeper about how it changed the nature of the business. But I want to first of all let everyone introduce themselves properly. So throw it over to Johnny now. Johnny, could you answer the same question? Go into detail about your position and what role events have played for your company.
Thanks, Rick. I think your intro was really good. I'm lucky enough to have two logos, I think, behind us. So I'm part of the South China Morning Post. We are now a global news organization based here in Hong Kong. And specifically, my role is business director for Morning Studio. Morning Studio does a lot of custom events for our brand advertisers. All of us are really into events. I mean, I think this is kind of our beat. And so let's be honest, I mean, we're all ready for COVID to be behind us. But also, I think we've all learned a lot. And I think that's what I want to emphasize. Although I'm not lucky enough, like Ricky, to be organizing Olympics, but what we've learned from these events this past year is, more of a focus on content and great conversations. And we've been lucky to be able to seamlessly, pivot to more virtual events and leveraging kind of our ability to tell stories, have great conversations. And so I'm happy to be here to share more of that.
Thank you very much, Johnny. Right, and lastly, we will move on to Sum Wong. Could you please answer the same question? Please provide us a little bit more information about your role and what role events have played for your company.
Sure. So I would like to welcome everybody today for joining our event. So EventX is an event management platform. And I think most of the attendee, you actually got a chance to experience our product by joining this event. And we actually provide software for multiple scale, like including like small events, could be like 10 to 50 people, seminars to like tens of thousands of people. Usually they are like exhibitions or conferences or even like big trade shows. So we're actually focusing a lot of events in Asia. And so far we have been, I think we have organized more than like 5,000 small and big events altogether and serving more than, I think 5 million people. So usually the region could be in Hong Kong, China, Japan, Korea, Southeast Asia, including like Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam. And so we would like to keep on organizing event like this today. We're really honored to have Johnny and Ricky to join us today to share their insight, because like from the interaction before this event, I think they are really experienced in this industry, and it's really our honor to have them. And we would like to keep on organizing event like this to share as much insight that we can. We work with a lot of organizers like them, which is like really experienced. They are really good, and they have very, I would say, like they are the frontier and the pioneer in the industry. So they try a lot of new things. So I'm also very excited to hear their thought today. And that's why we want to keep on organizing events like this, so that all of the event organizers, marketers, now we have like, usually it will be hundreds people that joining us, and then we can brainstorm it together. So later, feel free to ask your questions if you have any. So extract as many insight or experience from them as possible. So that's my advice for you guys today. So nice meeting you all, and thank you for joining us, for our speakers.
Thank you very much, Sum. Right, we are going to move on to our next question, and I'd actually like to touch on something that Johnny just said. Johnny, you said that you learned a lot during the last period. So how exactly is your business adapting to the current instability and the unpredictable social distancing policy changes, hosting events? What is exactly have you learned, and how did you adapt?
Yeah, I think taking a step back, I mean, South China Morning Post, being a 118 years newspaper, we've been going through a digital transformation for over the past decade or so. And so I think what COVID's done has really just accelerated something that we've already been working towards. And so we were lucky in some ways in that all of our staff across the company, we were already moving towards a very digital and digitalizing kind of our operations. And so when stuff happened, I think, over the past year, and actually beyond that, because we also went through social unrest here in Hong Kong, and that also impacted events. We had to shift, and so kind of what I said earlier on, where for our events, we're not so much around kind of entertainment or product launches and things like that. We are more about content and conversations, and so that naturally fit into the kind of virtual environment. So we were able to continue doing our events remotely, virtually. And so some of the things that we had to learn was certainly the platforms, right? So EventX being one of them, learning kind of how the technical operations work with our event specialists, who are used to perhaps running the floor at a venue and running the event. They very much had to be in the control room and learn a lot of the technical aspects of broadcasting and the audio technology, the video technology, and streaming and broadcasting, to multiple platforms and things like that. So I think there was definitely a learning curve there, and we're definitely better after this experience. And so I think gone are the days of the traditional in-person events where there isn't any kind of digital component. I think we're able to, based on this experience over the past year, always kind of improve our ability to reach more people and focusing on what matters. And I think education is a big part of what a lot of our viewers and attendees want. And so the on-demand nature, the kind of production elements of doing events now, that's really kind of our beat, right? It's become something that we're strong in, and so we're really excited about the offerings that we're able to provide now in this more kind of digitally enhanced event space.
Oh, by the way, Jonathan, let me just say, I do see during Johnny's bit, I saw a little bit of reaction here, reaction there. If you do want to talk, if you do have a point to make next, and you don't want me to just jump in, please raise your hand and say you have a point to make. It's just like a physical panel. Feel free if you do have something to say. I could see Ricky making look like he had something to say there. One thing is I do know that you have a different. Well, you said the nature of the business had changed very much, but the nature of your business is very different from Johnny's anyway. As Johnny said, they are very, very focused on content, while you guys are an event company. It's what you do, and a lot of what you did was based in physical. So I'd like your take on that. What do you think about what Johnny said? But also, yeah, what was your adapting to the situation like?
Honestly, in my past experience, it's really concentrated on in physical events. But as Johnny said, now everything's changed. The digital world is really changing the event business, and the content, particularly the content, it make the event so much creative. That's what. For example, the display on the screen, the content that we are going to show on the computer, and compared to the physical event, this is the creative. It's much broader. There's no limitation. And but on the other hand, that physical events have their advantage, and just for face-to-face contact, the people contact. But the digital events is really broader the marketing, and also is spread out very fast in the internet world. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, well, I mean, the joining link between these things really is use some. I'd actually think that that last comment by Ricky probably touches home for you a bit, because you're saying there's no limitations in the digital world, but yeah, the physical world has certain advantages, especially when it comes to face-to-face and networking. What would be your response with that, and how's EventX had to adapt to those strengths and weaknesses?
Yeah, definitely. I think we have shift quite some focus to serve different type of events. So we actually start with using serving the physical one more at the beginning, and especially in the COVID situation last year. Actually, what happened is we see the need of, no matter organizers or exhibitors or even attendee, they need to actually attend the physical from physical event to virtual events. So very quickly we actually launched the product that you guys just experienced, and I think a lot of organizers like Johnny's team, they actually last year in a very early stage, they were already organizing like property show. Property show, usually you need to look at flat, you look at like brochure, they make it virtual, and we see exhibitions and all this industry actually moving towards that virtual events. So now I think what happened is, to us, definitely, because we are serving the event industry, we provide software more for the physical event. Now the shift is definitely a little bit towards more virtual events. But I think the trend that we've seen is virtual event and physical event act on different purpose, like what Ricky just said. The physical one, it will be likely for more experiential. So you want physical touch. And so for our company, we will like basically for EventX, we just like to see how technology can enhance that. And the virtual one is very good for, I think, for expand your audience and for a marketing purpose. So if you want people have a light touch relationship with you, or actually you want it to make it more regular. So virtual event was actually a good way. And like today, like actually the speaker series that we have right now, we have audience from all over actually different region. I saw it. So from could be from Southeast Asia, could be from a region that actually we never have anyone there. So virtual event is a great place that we can expand the network. And the best part is like even Johnny and I actually, we haven't like physically met each other yet. So it's the great way that you can invite speaker like them, which is could be all around the world or in different place. For the speaker wise, actually it's save time, and because they don't need to travel that much. Actually, after this event, like immediately I need to go to a physical location to share in another events. So that actually is more time consuming. It's actually take more effort. And so, but virtual event like this, that is like lighter for the speaker. And I would say they now, people try both, and now people see the value of both. So on our basically, we will basically shift to serving on both sides. Yeah.
Johnny, you have a point
to say, right?
Yeah, Johnny, you have a point to make there?
Yeah, can I just jump in just to give it a little context, and thanks, Sum. You mentioned a property kind of festival event that we did at SCMP. So I think one way that we've been able to frame like the different types of events, and I think maybe I'll support Sum in talking about how software kind of comes into play, is we bucket them into that particular instance of a property festival, and we do other fairs like education fairs, and we call them marketplace events, right? And so you can imagine those types of events where you need kind of that interaction. So if I'm a parent and I am a parent and I want to look at schools, international schools in Hong Kong, traditionally in a physical event, you would kind of go booth to booth to talk to these schools. And in this, the property fair case too, right? You're going kind of booth to booth to kind of talk to the various companies on display. And so you can imagine that the software that enables this kind of interaction online, it needs to be functioning in a way that enables those kinds of connections. And this is very different. Like this kind of marketplace event is very different from I think in SCMP we call them more impact events, which are just more conversations around a particular topic. So perhaps sustainability, perhaps redefining finance, for example. And those are, you can imagine, just passive consumption of content. So it's basically talking heads like this is, where you try to consume what the people are talking about. And so you can imagine that the software that's required for conversations is a bit different from when you're trying to simulate an in-person interaction where you're actually asking a lot of questions along the way. So I just wanted to provide a little bit of context for that.
No, I actually appreciate that very much. And I'm actually going to put my next question on hold, actually, to follow up on it, but with Ricky here. Because we've had a couple of points here then about, different relationships, physical and virtual, and, different, how shall I put this, what your established experience is. What have you seen from brands and attendees about how much they've adapted them to these different changes? Like, for instance, going to as Johnny had the idea there of going to an education exhibition, in the physical world as opposed to going to a digital world. How have attendees and brands actually responded to this sea change?
Honestly, for me, I think as Johnny said, if this is an education exhibition or education event, then go to the web to talk is much easier. But for example, when we're hosting luxury brand events or car events, the people really want to touch the car or to touch the watch. So they can see all the specification on the web, on the internet. But for the luxury brands or luxury item, the people really want to feel it, and rather than just go on the internet. So nowadays, we have a lot of hybrid event. One time is a pre-event, which is all organized by internet, through the internet, but still they host a physical event to show the products as a showcase. Yeah, I think.
Okay, and I'm going to actually stay on you, Ricky, then I will ask my next question, which is, to what extent are businesses still putting their event budgets on hold in any way? Do you think it's now we're now rolling back to normalcy? How long do you think it will be until the event industry has a full recovery?
I think as long as we have to wait until all the borders open, and all the people have the vaccine until a certain level, and then we get all the borders open. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for the event and exhibition business. And at the moment, I think it's at least 6 months. And talking about the budgets, and actually a lot of companies, they really want to host event. They can't wait. But at the moment, they will, but they see the virtual event is also important. And so they all, I think my client, they will put about 50%, 50 to 50 on physical and virtual event right now. That's their budget. Yeah.
Johnny, do you have any thoughts on that from your end? Like, yeah, because you've got your clients, how are they handling it?
Yeah, I think, the types of events that we do, as I mentioned, are, more conversation based and maybe some award ceremony, kind of more serious kind of business type events. We've been lucky, I think, in Hong Kong. We can all acknowledge that for the most part, we weren't in complete lockdown where physical events were completely out of the question. So even during the past year, there were some elements of physical, events taking place. And we've done a lot of these hybrid events that Ricky mentioned, where there was a very responsible, safe, small scale in-person component with a bigger digital virtual component. So for example, there was a World City event last year around November, where this was a World Cities Festival, and Hong Kong was one of the cities featured. And we were still able to, actually, we were the only city of all the top cities around the world, so London and Paris, New York and Toronto, where we were actually able to hold a physical panel discussion. And we were able to rent out the Peninsula Hotel, have a very socially distanced panel of people sitting with masks on, I think one of the panels was, and broadcast that to a virtual audience. And so, we've had several cases where, respecting kind of local social distancing policy. So we had multi-city events, for example, when we were in Singapore and Chengdu and Hong Kong, where the China component was completely like normal, right? In person, with physical attendees without masks, and while all the other remote locations were done in a more, a different way that was more in tune with what the policies were. So I think budgets wise, a lot of it is about perception, right? So I think our advertisers, our clients are of the expectation that because physical venues no longer need to be rented, then the scale is smaller, the budgets are lower. Of course, we try to change that perception, but I think where we try to combat that is, okay, well, if we reduce some of the costs required for renting a venue, we can do more in terms of on-demand programming, content, videos, and things like that. So I think it kind of hopefully balances out.
I get you. Right, and speaking of budgets, it's now time for our next poll, actually, for you, our wonderful audience here, our attendees. The question is, how do you plan to allocate your events budget in the coming year? 100% on physical, 75% on physical, 25% on virtual, 50% on physical, 50% on virtual, 75% on virtual, 25% on physical, or I think we've accidentally spelled it physical, but please be patient with that. 100% on virtual, or very unexpected, I'll be very unlikely if I see this, no events of any kind. So we're going to give you a short bit now to put in your answers. Also like to tell you that if you would like to put questions to our panelists today, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Please just enter your question there. We are getting them and we're holding them for the end, where we will be holding a Q&A section for our panelists, time allowing. So let's see, we're going to give this another few seconds. I think we're going to be closing the panel. Please get your votes in now. Right, panel is closed. And let's see the results. Right, this is quite expected. 44%, nearly half, are saying half and half, saying 50% on physical, 50% on virtual. That was very expected. I think that goes along with kind of pretty much what Johnny and Ricky were saying about people kind of hedging their bets in both worlds. And also, I think the growth of hybrid events. But the next biggest one is 75% on virtual, 25% on physical, which also goes with a bit of what Ricky was saying about another 6 months pretty much until events go more physical. We're still going on the virtual. Next, the split the other way. And yeah, they're seeing no events of any kind. There was only one person who did that. I don't know who you are, but you're very brave for not holding any events around. Good for you. Anyway, after that, I'm going to now go over to our next set of questions, and I'm going to go to...
I think Ricky wanted to say something.
Oh, Ricky, you've got something to say on that.
Yes, I mean, it's very interesting from the statistic, from the polling that 75% on virtual, no, 100% on virtual is more than 100% on physical. This is very interesting.
I just think that's I think there is certain brands who have realized certain strengths, I think, in this field. I think what before was complete unfamiliarity, and this is my perception, has led some people to now completely jump on board and they're going, this is the way to go. And that does lead me into my next question, which is actually, I'm going to throw to Sum, because I think he's probably the most qualified one here to answer that, at least from his perception, I think, which is, compared to offline events, what do you see as some of the unique benefits that event planners in Hong Kong and overseas can reap from holding virtual events?
Yeah, actually, Ricky said it's interesting, right? And to be frank, I'm actually the one who will be working maybe 100% virtual. So actually, we tried both. So we organized this kind of event, which is in the industry, for the industry. And in the past, actually, we also have like really good speakers. But the problem is, if we host it physically in Hong Kong, then a lot of event organizers from outside world, actually, they cannot join. So actually, in the beginning of this year, we tried the first event, which is talking about the event trend in Asia. And actually, we got more than thousands of people registered. And that's one of the largest actually in the whole Asia to organize it. And the second one is, I think that's actually one of like related to the question, how can we leverage the unique proposition from Hong Kong, especially the event planner in here is Hong Kong actually is a very international. You can very easily connect it to a lot of really good network and speakers or attendee. And no matter from, let's say the outside Western world, or even including China. So last time actually when we organized an event, it was we talked about the event trend. I don't know, maybe some of you have been there. And so we have people from 33 countries actually joined the event. And I think that's actually the largest event to talk about the event trend in Asia. And last time, I think one of the success factor is we actually invited a speaker from Singapore. We invite the speaker from, I think, Philippines, Vietnam, and Taiwan. And so it's a very diverse speaker profile. And it's also very regional. And also that's why it attracts regional attendee to join. And so I would say my recommendation is do think about how to leverage in virtual events to expand your audience. And that's why actually I think because like our product, our service is to serve the whole, I would say the whole world if they want to, even you are from Russia, anywhere. And if they want to learn about the best practices on event organizing or things like that, virtual, actually we can serve more people. And so that's why actually if I vote, I will vote for almost close, not exactly 100, maybe like 90% or to 95%. And virtual also allowed one more thing, which is interesting is, for example, like today, after we organized this event, actually last time we did the same thing is, after we organized that event, there's like 1,000 people register, and the event itself is impactful, but the long tail of that event is even more impactful. So a lot of people actually didn't attend that event, or they didn't know about the event when we organized it, but we put it into on-demand webinar that automatically, kind of like the platform that you guys, when you enter now is you join the live one, and then we host that on-demand one. And the on-demand one actually got like thousands of visits after the event. And that is very interesting because now that event was around, I think, do you remember? It was like January or February, I think. And until now, just like a few months, and that's like generating thousands of views. And I assume actually if I pull it longer, like a year or two, and people can revisit anytime, anywhere if they want. And that's another powerful effect that people can leverage, which is the on-demand, and you can reuse that to generate more, could be traffic, could be visit, could be brand awareness. And that's something that maybe people can consider.
Yeah, rather than just straight up just ask, what do you think the benefits are of virtual events to the pair of you guys? I was wondering, which do either of you have any thoughts on what Sum said about, I don't know, any of the things he said about the idea of that it can be available worldwide, that the scale can actually sometimes be larger, or any of the other points? Johnny's nodding his head, so I'm going to go with you, Johnny.
I think as media, that's music to my ears, right? That's exactly what we want to talk about because, and I don't come from like a traditional events background, more of a, a digital person. But yeah, that proposition, the fact that we are able to cater to, let's be honest, we're all in an on-demand, generation, right? We're in a Netflix, Spotify kind of generation where we're used to being able to control what we consume, right? And I think this development in the events industry allows this behavior to continue and to amplify, like Sum said, the long tail where these things get amplified well after the live event is over. And I see that over 200 people have decided to join live right now, but you can imagine after we've done talking, right, when this gets shared and amplified and published, more people will be able to experience this content. And I found myself, and we haven't mentioned kind of the idea of like fatigue, right? And of course there's Zoom fatigue, but I think for me, I like that it's now become an easy decision to register for an event. I don't need to think about what are my travel plans, like this kind of appointment event that I need to make sure I've blocked out my calendar to be able to attend. I don't have to deal with traffic. I don't have to deal with like all these traveling logistics concerns. It's easy for me now to think I can register, but I know that the event and the content will be available to me at my convenience. And I think that's something that will continue to kind of be the expectation of our participants, our viewers, and we hope to leverage that going forward.
Ricky, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think Sam already talked about a lot of the advantage of holding a virtual event, but I think he didn't mention about the turnover, the income, or as an organizer. It's very important that when you host a physical event in a convention center, maybe you can only sit at 1,000 people, 1,000, 2,000 people. But when you open the hybrid, this event as a hybrid event, you can maybe have another 20,000 visitor or 50,000. This is unlimited. So and apart from saving the cost, it also generates additional costs for as holding a virtual event. Yeah.
Great. Well, I'm going to jump now because if you ever mention a positive, everything must be balanced with perhaps a slight negative. And I'm actually going a little bit, was going to be my next question anyway, but someone in the chat has actually brought this up, was that they seem to be having trouble making virtual events engaging and more innovative to draw attendees' attention. And that is the worry about a lot of events, is how do you stop an event being more than just a Skype call? How do you make it an actual engaging virtual event? So let me just throw this out to the table here, actually. Does anyone have any strong feelings about what can make an engaging event? Raise your hand if you'd like to. Oh, Johnny, of course.
Some things are like irreplaceable, right? Like if it's just a sporting event, a concert, let's not try to replicate, the beauty of that kind of live experience. But for kind of more, simpler events, which again are focused around content, then I think actually, Rick, your job now, that's exactly what you're trying to do to the 200 plus participants, right? To try to engage them, to acknowledge that they exist, that we're not just talking to a blank wall. I think the moderator, the host, the MC, plays a big role in making things lively, to acknowledge that there are people on the other side listening and attending and interested. I think for speakers as well, we need to also acknowledge that there are people who are listening right now in a live way. And so I think that kind of interaction with the audience is important. I think there are limitations to software and tools, right, in kind of making something a physical thing that you feel. But I think there are other ways, other drawbacks, but all other kind of benefits from, like I said, having an on-demand choice, and you can be much more creative in how you program the event. I mean, I also want to say that what the benefit is this is maybe a well-needed change for the industries to think more creatively. Some of the viewers here may not be in Hong Kong, but like some of the things that are happening in Hong Kong with like the grounds, for example, with movies being aired and in a very in-person but socially distanced way, it's just led to a lot of innovations in the event industry. I think that's kind of a good thing to kind of change things up a little bit.
I'm actually going to go a little bit off script here then. For some, I'm going to ask you then. So we're talking about being creative here, but how much are the limitations of engagement built into the format, really? How much can be overcome with technology and new advancements, or is it more up to creative thinking? Where do you think the balance lies with that?
Yeah, actually, definitely that's actually one of the biggest problem we want to solve for virtual events, which is about engagement. Actually, most of the organizers, this is although it's asked by just one person, but actually that's the problem or the most challenging thing for organizers or event marketers when they organize virtual event is how to boost the engagement rate. And I think it's a mix of both creativity and also technology. And on the creativity wise, why we're doing the polling I want to share how we're doing it and why we're doing it. So you see the questions that we ask. It's actually not exactly a random question. It's like, oh, okay, let's ask some questions for the audience and then poke them. And so our way to think about the question is, I think the first most important thing is think about what the audience want to know when you ask those polling questions. And like actually the polling that we just did, which asked about the budget. So actually, I don't have that answer. I guess maybe Ricky or Johnny doesn't have that answer on actually how much we may see some of the pattern, but not all the pattern. But the audience can actually is a collectively, I would say collective intelligence from the group. And so that actually add value to the event. So when you design the polling, which is the engagement element, at the same time, you need that creativity on or the empathy on what actually the audience really want to know. And so that one is like the speaker actually can comment on it. And actually what we did is our best practice is we actually asked those questions that actually rank, and later they would analyze those questions and we produce a white paper. So based on the polling questions and the answers, actually we are also at the same time doing a research based on the event market. And so we will consolidate all this number. Actually, every single event we ask different questions. And so some of the questions we already asked, then this event we won't ask it. So and gradually you actually have accumulate a very comprehensive white paper on the research on the industry. And sometimes you can ask the same questions and then you do comparison. For example, you ask a question in January and then you ask it again in June and see does the people actually change on their budget allocations. And that makes things interesting. And the second one actually is on the, you mentioned about the technology side. So that's something that we try to do is by two, three things that we are implementing. One is at the booth. Today, actually, I don't think we open it, but now actually we are launching a new feature that at the booth, the virtual booth right now is more informative and you can click like PDF and you can view it. But actually we implement one thing is live streaming at the booth. So that means people actually, when you visit the booth, there is a real person on the other side immediately talking to you. And so it become what kind of like a physical experience. And that's something that technological, we are actually solving it in more technological way. So we implement feature that simulate back the virtual experience. But there's one interesting thing is now actually in virtual world, you leave your footprint. So when you visit the booth and the person will engage you, at the same time, actually, we're scrapping information from all internet about that person for that speaker or the person actually speaking to you, so that you kind of know the audience way better. So at the back end, you cannot see it. At audience, they cannot see it. But actually at the booth, the representative there, they can see a comprehensive profile about that person. So that's actually the one of the interesting factor that we are implementing. And I think that's one. And also like some gamifications. So we actually have a gamification module that people actually, the more they visit, the more higher chance that they would get a prize based on the gamifications. So that's something that in technological way we're solving. So I hope that gives them some ideas for you guys.
No, I mean, myself, as I say, I'm based out of EventX, so I've actually seen some of these new features are bringing in. And one thing is the live streaming at the vendor. What it brought up to my mind was I'm an avid video gamer. So to me, it brought up the idea whenever you play something, if you're a big fan of role-playing games and you go to like a store vendor and he goes, here, look at my wares. That type of experience is familiar. There's a lot of ideas that, different experiences found in different environments can change your perception of virtual events. And that very long-winded way around is how I'm going to ask Ricky something quickly before our next poll, which is as I think you are probably the long-time event maestro here. You are the one with the, biggest idea of what makes an event, strong and stronger and weaker. What do you think are some of the key elements to, holding a virtual event? What are the pitfalls and mistakes to avoid, maybe even industry specific, where maybe their worldview, their knowledge of certain types of events may actually lead to pitfalls? What do you think some of the some of the pitfalls to avoid when holding a virtual event, Ricky?
Actually, Rick, for holding a successful event, there's no difference between physical and virtual event, honestly. And I think the key element is really the content of the event and the speaker of the events, and also what visitor will get after the event. I mean, there's really no difference between physical and virtual. And as Sam said, EventX has done a lot of research on the polling system. I mean, for every event, or even for virtual or for physical, we need to do a lot of research on the topics of the event that you want to host. Okay, so think about at the end of the events, your client, your visitors, particularly your visitor, what they are going to benefit from it. Otherwise, if you just want to host an event because you want to host an event, it's meaningless at all. Yeah.
Okay, so this means be goal orientated, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's very good advice. I want to chase this up very much, but it is actually time now for our next poll. So to stop here for a moment, we might revisit it, but it is live polling time. And so question number 3 we have for you in attendance. What feature is most important to you when choosing a platform to host your virtual events? Is it the interface design's flexibility? Is it having live polling and voting solutions of the type we just discussed? Is it having networking tools so that your attendees can connect easier? Is it having those statistical attendance reports so afterwards you can see, perhaps, as Ricky said, achieve some certain goals and be able to measure it? Or is it access to specific markets? For instance, China. Is that your main thing you're looking for in your platform? So please, in the next few seconds, let's say 30 seconds, can everyone in attendance answer to the best of ability what they would choose as their platform? What feature would be most important? And that includes that person who voted that they will be holding no virtual events next year. That one person, what would you pick as the feature that would define it? Even you. Just seeing here at the timer. Right, polling is over. And it looks like design flexibility is number 1 at 40%. That was unexpected for me, but it seems people want to be able to customize it a lot, probably to their brand. 31% networking tools, of course, because of the issue we talked about in the face-to-face environment versus virtual. Then live polling and voting solutions there. Market specific at 10%. Very surprised to see statistical attendance reports that low. I'm actually very surprised, even lower than regional access. Does anyone else have thoughts on this poll before we move on? Because for me, that's absolutely shocking. I thought data is king. Well, but below content, of course.
I wish we were able to vote. I guess as a speaker, we weren't able to vote in the poll. But I think one thing that came to mind was support. Actually, that wasn't an option. I think as a service provider for our clients, any kind of web platform is great, and there are a lot of great tools out there. Sometimes we need kind of that extra layer of manpower support for our systems, especially for live events. And we have clients breathing down our necks, so we need kind of a support system to help us run the event.
Yeah, okay. And Ricky, what do you think about these numbers? That doesn't look very goal-orientated to me. That no one really cares about the data afterwards.
It's quite surprising also for me. But actually, I mean, on the other hand, I would like to add features on the system if possible. All the Q&A is, you see there's a lot of questions on my left side of the right side of the computers, but all these questions is going to raise up by you later on. But if we can, have some real attendees, real time to let them to raise the question on their own. it's more interesting. It seems like we have a chance to face, not only talking to you or to Sam or to Johnny. We have the chance to talk to some the visitor at the same time. I think it's quite interesting if we can do this.
Well, I've thrown in a couple of points that they've been asking in the chat. I've been keeping one eye on it over here at the side, but we're trying to keep it a Q&A, because that's the one, I will say, one risk of the format is, unlike in a literal, physical, real world setting, someone just suddenly says, I have something to say. It's easy enough, and there's a way of moderating it. I think one thing we've all learned over the last year is how difficult the dance of the webcam conversation can be, and knowing, it's a different set of rules from a physical conversation. I think that's the one thing stopping exactly what you're talking about there. Right, but we are actually going to look at the future. We've talked about the present, we talked about the past a bit, about how we adapted. Now let's look at the future, right? So we're going to ask, how do you think the global events industry will change after the pandemic has been resolved? And to what extent will the split between online, offline, and hybrid events shift? And I think I'm going to throw this to Sum over here. Sum, what do you think will be the future? And what do you think the split will be?
Definitely, I think right now, actually, most of the people already booked for a hybrid event. And so a lot of actually, like, it will be a different nature. Some of the event, like webinar or like more educational events, definitely they will move towards virtual. And the pre-event and post-event, I think there will be, the long tail will be in virtual. And physical experience, there will be still, I think, almost like 50-50 or 60-40. So probably 60 sometimes back to physical and 40 to virtual. But there will be a lot of new event that invented because of the convenience of hosting events. And it could become some of the, actually we saw some hotel actually on our platform, they're hosting, I think it's called virtual gin tasting or virtual wine tasting. So basically you bought the wine or bought the gin, and at home they will have probably a teacher from, could be wine, could be on gin, and then they teach you that gin, what's that mean, how does it taste it, and so people who bought that gin can taste it at their home. And so that's actually really innovative, and that's a new category of event that in the past you may not have. And so that's some of the portion that I would say, yeah.
Yeah, and Ricky, how do you see it? Have you seen much change, or are people just looking forward to going back to traditional?
No, not really. I think we have to break this into two parts. One is event business, one is exhibition. So for event and conference, I think we will go for hybrid system, hybrid system, and I don't think we can go back. And but for exhibition, it's different. I mean, it's still very green in the exhibition side, in the exhibition market. The people still need to get used to for virtual exhibition. Yeah.
Why?
Because there's a, yeah.
Oh no, I was about to say, I've heard this phrase several times before. People have said there is no going back, but why? Why is there no going back? Why can't we just reset the clock? Is it just that now we know the benefits, or why is there no going back to traditional events as well?
There's so much benefits on it, and it's so convenient for hosting a virtual event. And also the people now is get used to it. You know, the virtual events, they really get used to the virtual events, unless they want to go there to meet their colleagues, like a big corporate event. They really want to meet their colleagues, or to meet some speakers, or to have some fun. I mean, face to face during the dinner side or during the lunchtime. So I don't think, and also the income, as I mentioned before, hosting a physical event, there's a limitation of the visitor. But for having a hybrid event, there's a limit for the income. I mean, can be really open, unlimited. Yeah.
See. No, I get you. And Johnny, you come, like you said, you come from a world that was much more digitally inclined to start with, probably even, you know, so for you there is no returning to traditional events in some way. But what is the future for on your side, and how is it different from the past? Like, is it that now that because there's an awareness of virtual, hybrid is now that's where you're going, or are you now going, no, we're staying with digital, it's what we do? What are you doing on your end?
Yeah, I mean, hybrid's probably the right answer. There's always going to be the virtual component. I think we have to acknowledge the maybe psychological and behavioral kind of changes that have happened, right? So as Ricky said, people are just used to it, so there's an expectation, so we have to address that. I think psychologically also just the idea of safety. I mean, you know, even though we're very anxious for things to recover, I think we also need to understand that in many parts of the world now, you know, they're still trying to battle something that's ongoing, right? So I think safety, hygiene, and you know, all that stuff that still needs to be you know, acknowledged as event organizers, that we want to ensure safety of all participants. I think in the digital world, I mean, there are just a lot of opportunities for innovation. I think Ricky mentioned, you know, a suggestion, and to be honest, of course, there are startups that are looking at these kinds of innovations in their product. So things like breakout rooms and the ability to connect with any of the participants today, you know, in the context or after, you know, this conversation between us. And so there definitely will be additional innovations from various, you know, software solutions providers and other event organizers. And it's an exciting space because we're trying to solve problems that haven't been solved before.
Very good. Right. We're actually going to cut to our next poll a little bit early because we've had so many Q&A questions. I'm actually going to skip our planned last questions just to go to them, but we're going to go do our poll, our final poll of the day. So please answer is, how would you rate your expertise at organizing virtual events? We've had a year of this, and in that time, it's, you know, we want your honest opinion. How do you feel about your expertise at hosting or organizing virtual events? 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. So, you know, 1 is you still don't know what's going on or how to do it at all, and 5 is you're a dapper hand at it. You know exactly what you're doing. By the way, quick apologies to everyone about my throat. It's just rather sore today. So please, my apologies. But we'll have a few 30 seconds on that note, and we'll see what people think about their own expertise. So just give that a short while here. Okay, I think we'll close it shortly. And here is the results. I kind of expected this. I think a lot of people aren't going to be willing to say that they're absolute experts in it. So a lot of people going straight down the middle saying, yeah, they know what they're doing at 3. They give it a 3. I know what I'm doing. But there are, I say, there's a few people who are claiming themselves to be experts, and a few who are still they think they have no idea what you're doing. Don't worry, a lot of us still don't. So that's absolutely normal. But thank you very much, by the way, all of you attendees for answering these poll questions. Some mentioned, we will be putting them all in a white paper in the weeks to come after this event, and then we'll be putting that online, and it will be free to download as all our white papers are. As you can actually see, our white paper from our previous webinar is online now. Anyway, enough of shilling. So it's now time to go to our, we're going to do our Q&A. And let me just draw up some questions here from our Q&A. And I'm going to see here. Virtual events has helped our company reach audiences from around the world as compared to physical events. However, how can we convert the people who register to actually attending the virtual event? So I'm trying to figure out exactly what that means. Anyone else make heads or tails of that? What want to jump in? Johnny, you seem keen.
Yeah, probably getting to like turnout rate, right? Conversion rate. Those that register, how do you get them to attend? That's kind of, you know, what we do, right? Because we're media. And so I think the first thing is definitely time. You have to give people time, respect that it takes a bit of time to register, to commit, to promote. So, you know, leaving enough time for promotions is important. And then of course, that kind of constant touch point once you've registered to ensure that they know to join, that they have the resources, they have the link, etc. I mean, I think that's where a lot of the media promotions and your media plan come into play, and we've had a lot of experience learning from that.
Well, and what do you think, Sum? What do you think about conversion? I mean, that is a big issue. A lot of people might sign up. An email is easy to supply, but how do you actually get them to attend?
I think generally, actually, we see around 40 to 50% show up rate, usually for events, like that's 3. That means if you have 100, like let's say 500 people registered, then probably like around 250 people will show up, around that range, so maybe 200 to 250, depends on what type of event, like that's for webinar. And trade show will be a little bit different, and large conference will be a little different. But I think like generally it's about value. So people register means I'm interested, right? So they indicate they're interested. And indeed, actually, even for myself, I would sometimes even forget about registering the event because at that moment I saw, oh, that actually the speaker profile is great. I want to attend. And when the event came closer, then I actually forgot about it. And I forgot about actually, maybe I forgot to bookmark on my calendar, or maybe actually I scheduled something else. And so that happened. So you want to make sure those who indicate interest really show up. I think the key is by communicating the values mainly. And usually we actually, of course, we are the event platform that, so we saw that problem actually in a lot of events. So you get a lot of people register and then actually just maybe half of it show up. So that's why we designed a few features. One is definitely the auto reminder. Like the email reminder, actually we combine with SMS reminder. So people can receive both sides, because email right now is like quite a spam. So especially like as a CEO, to be frank, my inbox every day, I have like almost like 200 to 300 emails, and half of them is actually people outbound and send it to just generally to a CEO or founder of the company. And so it become very diluted, and there was like a lot of email like that. And that's why actually we usually sometimes we put on SMS reminder, maybe a few days before the event and 1 day before the event. And a second is like utilizing the email too, to keep notifying your audience. Sometimes, for example, if you have an update about your speaker or the speaker profile, or you have one more speaker, or anything that about your events that you can communicate, I strongly suggest you to use that before you host the events and during the period of waiting, and so that they be reminded about what's the value that they register. For example, let's say our event, then you remind them again, this is the 3 speaker that they will be speaking, and maybe a little bit enhance on the profile, who they are, and again, so that they keep reminding them why at the beginning they commit, and so they get it, and repetition is the key. And so sometimes you might forget about it. So you just want to make sure who register, indicate interest, like they remember what they committed for. And human, usually we are actually easy to forget. That's our tips.
Wow, that was pretty comprehensive. Thank you for your question, by the way, Eric and Neo. It was very appreciated, and to everyone who's sending in their questions. I actually have one here directly for Ricky. It's been named for you specifically. He is addressing Mr. Ricky. Looking at current trends in China, it seems like trade shows are going back to in-person, and professional example, medical conferences are happening in hybrid. What do you think?
Rick, as I mentioned before, virtual platform or virtual event is really working for the event side, but not for the exhibition right now. I think we still need time to let the people to get used to the virtual exhibition. I mean, don't forget why there's an exhibition, why the people want to go to the exhibition. I think the main reason is they want to visit the booth. They want to visit maybe when they go to the exhibition, the person or the supplier, the partners they are going to work with, or if they want to find partners in the future, or their product, they really want to feel the product, or even though by using that chance, maybe they want to go to visit the factory as well. I mean, before go to the virtual, this all trust has to build up, because they are talking about business. They are talking about to make business together. It's not going to like a medical conference or event. They listen to the speaker. So exhibition and event is two different, totally different business. So for conference, medical conference, of course, can be hybrid, because they can have the PPT or the speaker on the stage. but you can listen through the virtual, through the internet, but not for the exhibition. For the exhibition, maybe can be virtual, or once you know the factory, once you know the person more in detail, or with a better relationship, then you may not go to the exhibition or just go to the virtual business to visit a few booths on your own. Yeah.
I dig it. And also slightly related to this, but also related to something, Johnny, you mentioned earlier. You briefly touched on the idea of virtual fatigue. And I think that's also what Ricky is slightly pointing out here, in that there's certain, it's not got the same feel as personal. Johnny, how would you address the issue of virtual fatigue is one question we have here from our attendees. How do we battle it? If it's a constant issue with virtual, what's the solution?
Yeah, I think some touched on it a little bit, where you're trying to communicate the benefits of the event. Just touching on China as well, like it really depends, and sometimes there's we deal with China government a lot, China government clients, and the perception is still very different. So in addition to kind of whether it's in person or virtual, there's also a factor of whether it's live or pre-recorded, right? So you can imagine at the end of the spectrum, there's an expectation in terms of face and like your reputation. You want things to be live and you want them to be in person, and there's a big benefit to that. And so I think playing that up, I think there's still the perception that if things are recorded or if it's digital, it's not kind of real enough. It's not really connecting with the audience. And so I think connecting, communicating with the participants, with the people that register, why it's important to participate, and giving that kind of in-person oomph will help the event. And battling the fatigue is really about giving them that kind of diversity, and something that they don't expect. I think today, maybe because it's so commonplace, right? The whole idea of Zoom being so easy to use, everyone's using it for from serious events to kind of family chats. It becomes kind of a bit mundane. And so how do we as event organizers make it more interesting, a bit kind of different? And this is where the innovation and kind of event programming come into play, because you're able to give them something different. And I think that's a reason to join.
I see. All right. I've actually got a couple of people now. I think I'm going to throw this probably to Sum first, and then I'll open it up. Because a couple of people have brought up restrictions on basically your capability to host it based on local internet and data. So one person's written, I agree with Ricky's opinion that virtual events have many benefits. However, the biggest barrier is the internet network issue. In Hong Kong, we have a well-developed network system. As for some regions or countries, they don't. So how do you get over that? I mean, and someone else has also said, similarly, one moment here, I know it's somewhere around here. How do you think low latency live streaming has a great impact on users? If yes, do you think the cost for having it is justifiable for organizers or event hosts? So I think we're talking about, actual capabilities there with both questions. Sum, would you like to answer that? How do we either get over these, or how do we justify virtual if sometimes you've got these barriers or difficulties in place?
Yeah, from the, I think, technology perspective, we have done something, which is when they have different internet speed, we will automatically at the back end, kind of like switching a little bit the resolution for the audience. I think that's one of it. And second one is actually, if you talk about virtual event, I think some of you might have experience on different type of virtual events. Some of the virtual event is like you can see 3D booth, people can walk around, and then just like a video game. And you can see actually EventX, we purposely actually don't design the booth in that way. So that's actually because we are serving quite a lot of country in Southeast Asia, including definitely some of the country that they might not have internet speed as fast as Hong Kong. So especially in Philippines and a few countries, they mentioned that the reason they choose our platform is because we are not 3D. And because actually 3D will need a lot of loading speed, and some of the audience or the attendee actually they cannot afford, or on computer wise or bandwidth wise, it's actually not accessible for them. So it becomes a forever loading platform. And so I think that's one of the factors that it depends on which country and your audience will be in. And if your audience will cover those region that actually doesn't have internet speed, you might need to consider when you choose a platform. And the second one, I think, is when on the technology wise, there's like a few, that's why we actually also provide a few options. For example, like today, if we visit the booth from the virtual lobby, right now we are not doing the live streaming. So that means you can just click chat and then you can do text with the representative. And text actually use much less bandwidth compared to video call. But we can also use video streaming if you want to. So that's actually based on the organizer want. And I think that's another thing that you might consider to engage. How do you engage your exhibitor audience or even speakers? And so actually, Ricky asked earlier, can we actually also allow people to ask questions personally? Actually, the platform it allowed them to do so. So, but just the format of this event, because it's quite packed and we have a lot of questions. So we just prefer to let them ask like by the text so that it's like faster. But if you have longer time, that's feasible. But actually we have done that before. It's more interactive, and the speaker also feel because they can see the face of the people. That's actually even better sometimes. And it depends on the time. And if we have like 1.5 hours or 2 hours, maybe we can do that way. And so I think overall you need to think about the audience and when you choose the platform. One small tip is about China. So if you need to deal with China, that's something that you need to very specifically think about, because like in China, they have limitation on live streaming. It's not like everybody can do live streaming in China. And so we also have a special handling on that. So I think just think about your audience and choose the platform that's suitable for you.
You actually beat me to that. I was actually going to mention that, because I was going to slide over to Ricky with this. EventX, for instance, is one platform that has made special provisions to run its tech, run the platform in areas like China. And Ricky, you operated very heavily in China. So how much has technology, things like, networks or, technological barriers, how much has that affected basically virtual events for China, Ricky? How much has it presented a problem?
And actually, when you choose the right platform, for example, like EventX, they have a partner in China, can really link up to the border, across the country, should not be a big problem. And the Chinese people, they have the most advanced cell phone and all the technology. Now they have all the 5Gs in China. So in terms of internet, in terms of hardware, should not be really a problem. It's the event organizer to choose the right partner. They have the, capable, or they have the partner to China in China to link up the platform, and that's it. For hardware, no problem at all. Yeah.
I've got. I think I'm just going to basically see if I've got time for one quick one. I can throw to Johnny, I think, which I'm trying to find the exact question in the list. But someone was asking about. And it's because I think this relates to you as content, really, is in if most of the content from virtual events is going online anyway, as it usually does, and usually it's like, we'll be posting the whole event online and you can watch it then. What is the point of attending? And this is a big issue, is if I can watch it later, why go there? Why go and attend it? It's more of a pain. It intrudes on a specific time in my life when I could just watch it at the convenience of what I want to. And then is it ever worth it?
I think the answer is that I think that's okay. I treat them as an attendee. I think redefining what it means to attend, right? And I think I acknowledge that I respect their time, and so I definitely count them as an attendee. I think one benefit with content is we can be much more introduce more high production values. I think that's what's what we're excited about, where with this it's very live, it's very unscripted in many ways, but the future events are any combination of those things, and that's where the live TV show production experience come into play, where you can make something very highly produced. You can add multiple cameras, and add B-roll footage and to make the experience more interesting. And I think that's the future of these virtual events, where it's not just live and we're talking in this way and it's a recorded thing that they can access later. We can actually introduce more production value into the event itself.
I mean, that's a lovely way of seeing it, redefining attendance. So actually, to all of you who are watching this afterwards, hello, thank you for attending. But more importantly as well, just to all of you who are attending here live, unfortunately today, this is the end of the webinar. So I think we've had a wonderful time today. I think we've managed to talk through some interesting subjects. Ricky, for instance, talked about how the pandemic has changed the nature of the business, that basically there's no going back to the traditional models, but different industries do have different needs. And also that the new events, virtual events, have massive potential though to bring income as an event organizer. Frankly, they're unlimited. Johnny made some great points about how customer events. You can make great content for them, that over the last year, we've learned how to use these platforms effectively and do good content generation, but that you have to be creative to get that engagement. And also that, you have to look outside normal, what you might think you need for your platform, support services, for instance, being important. And also like the final point he made about redefining attendance, which I think that's lovely. I'm definitely going to start using that. And Sum spoke about how that the scale of events, like Ricky had mentioned, has changed incredibly, and that now you can work with a varied amount of event organizers and a varied amount of brands in different ways. You can become more time effective running virtual events. You can go global with virtual events, and that content has this staying power online afterwards that normal traditional events don't. That these are a very valuable proposition, but the importance is that you do have to make sure you get that attendance by notifying your guests, keeping them updated about what's going to happen at the event, make sure they're there, and that basically the event platforms like EventX are working to consistently find ways to meet the needs of different clients and different brands. I mean, that's a lot to get out of 1 hour and 15 minutes, frankly, as a webinar. So thank you very much, gentlemen. And on that note, I think we'll have to end there. So to Johnny, to Ricky, to Sum, thank you very much. And to all our attendees on the EventX platform, thank you very much for coming. We'll be releasing that white paper in the coming weeks, and we will be putting this online later. So thank you very much and have a wonderful rest of the week.
Thanks a lot, Rick.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunities. Thank you, Rick. Bye-bye.